Recently, I had the great opportunity of experimenting with 5-MeO DMT. A sufficient quantity was available for not only several self-experiments, but many, approximately 50, administrations to others. The dosages varied as widely as the subjects. I gave this chemical to quite a spectrum of individuals, including old, seasoned, hippies, businesspeople, rainbows, ravers, and all manner of psychonauts in between. Perhaps the only thing these people had in common was a desire to try. Although there were many similarities among the experiences, I can honestly say you never know for sure how someone will react to this. The method of ingestion was always the same: smoked on foil through a straw. Some other methods were tried in the beginning, but none proved to be as consistently reliable as the foil-straw method. Since the stuff liquefies before it burns, putting it on top of some kind of dried plant material or ash left us unsure of whether or not we were getting it all or if some of it was running through the screen. This just compounded the pre-existing difficulty of metering a dose that is hard to see with the naked eye, much less measure with accuracy. After a few trials, it was clear that we needed some type of cradle to contain the liquid while it heated up to the proper temperature. Glass worked okay for a few hits, despite the thickness, which slows down the burning, but then resin would build up, which complicated the matter unnecessarily. Finally, an excellent method was discovered, which I still use today. Take a 4 to 5 section of aluminum foil that's as long as the full roll and create a depression at one end by shaping it around a thumb. The little cradle should be as deep as up to that first knuckle of the thumb. Then the remaining length of the foil can be shaped into a handle. This creates a nice, tight little smoking unit in which the pure white crystals can be placed. This and the lighter are held by the administrator while the straw is held by the smoker. It is important that the inhalation be fast enough not to let any smoke escape, waste. But not so fast that the lungs are full before it stops burning. This forces the smoker to decide between holding in what they've got or going for the rest, which is rapidly burning up into the atmosphere. The common dose can be smoked all in one hit, delivering a more than adequate experience. If there's so much in there that it takes more than one inhalation to get it all, then that person is definitely going over the top. Over the course of the last year I've seen quite a number of 5-MeO DMT trips, but first I'll explain my initial experience. There were 10 of us, and no one had ever tried it before. The setting was ideal. Private country acreage, whole house to ourselves, nighttime, no phone, no TV, no artificial light of any kind, only candles, quiet, no music, and all this in a clean, open room centered around a futon mattress on which the tripper lay during the ride. Our collective mindset was equally fitting. No one was there to get fucked up. All present had a spiritual take on the psychedelic experience. We started with the smallest possible amount that could be picked up with the tip of a knife, 1 grain, and kept doubling it until effects were felt. At only 4 and 8 grains people were reporting some mild effects, including light, trippy euphoria. Getting up to 3 milligrams, or just under, they would lay quietly for a few minutes and then describe what sounded like a really nice tryptamine space. Slowly the dose was increased until the subjects were riveted in the prone position for 10 to 20 minutes and then wanted to expound upon the experience at great length. They all reported beautiful spaces, but they weren't sure if they were getting the full dose, because they all said they wanted to do more next time. By then it was my turn, and everyone was ready to see a whopper. Stupidly, we piled on a little more than twice the last dose. This was about 10 milligrams. The first effects were felt 1/3 of the way through the hit. I can't remember if I went back for the second hit. By the time I laid back, plus 20 seconds, it felt like a maximum dose LSD experience. After another 20 seconds though, the energy rush was so intense that my normal methods of channeling it were broken down. I was writhing uncontrollably on the futon. People had their hands on me saying, "It's gonna be okay," and other such comforting things. For me it was very tactile. I could feel it through every neuron in my body. During the most hectic part of the trip, it felt like needles were poking in and out of every square inch of my skin. My pulse seemed like it was 200. I asked my sitters to check it during that time. They said it was fast but not out of bounds. This did a little bit to relieve my fear that I was in fact going to die. This may sound like a bad time, but I was forced to grow into new levels of energy. Also keep in mind that this is more than the recommended dose. After 2 to 3 minutes of this hellish, fear-filled squirming, I was able to channel the energy by spontaneous yoga. At +10 minutes, the major turbulence dropped away, and I was left in a really comfortable flow state, which declined rapidly for another 30 minutes. I was not at baseline until I woke up the next morning. The rest of the trips went off beautifully. We felt a huge connectivity among the members of the group. While one person tripped, the others watched silently, wrapped in awe and understanding. A silent knowing swept across our group, as one by one, we were initiated into the DMT experience. This is a most powerful experience, even at the normal dose level. It must be used with extreme caution. The most important thing, for safety's sake, is a subtle, low-energy atmosphere. Any confusion, or even basic conversation in the room can color the experience in a way that might be unpleasant to the voyager. Be considerate. If you were having the most intense psychedelic trip of your life, would you want to hear someone complaining about their job, or talking about the local sports team? Silence seemed to set people up for the optimal experience. Ambient sounds or music are okay though, example, bubble bowl, or wave sounds. This is not a feel-good party drug. This is potent medicine for inner explorers. There are some very real and potentially limiting attributes to this chemical. The first is the difficulty of finding a workable dose. When people get less than the full dose, they don't really enter the trance and want to do more. When people do get the full dose, it's so overwhelming that they don't typically know how to use it. Besides all of that, the experience is so short of duration that even if one can use it, it ends too soon. It would seem logical that the softening, expanding qualities that harmaline has on tryptamine would make it a perfect companion for the short, brutally intense 5-MeO trip. Hint, hint. Of the many doses administered to others, the most common reaction, to the full amount, was, "That was too intense. I'm glad I did it, but I'll never do it again." Yes, for most, once is enough. However, a couple of people kept coming back wanting more in the typical, crackhead, style. I believe these individuals would have seriously abused this material had they had the access. Wisely, I cut off anyone in which this nasty trait was observed. A couple of times, I gave people too much. For example, one subject had a strong reaction to a more than adequate dose, but sat up after 5 minutes and requested more. Another more than adequate dose was given, which rendered him unconscious, totally unresponsive for 20 minutes, with no other ill effect besides slight, unalarming muscle tremors in the legs. People who get knocked out by a whopping dose of this stuff don't, in my experience, remember anything that happened during the blackout. Strangely, one individual would not respond to the normal stimuli, calling name, slapping face, opening eyelid, etc. But did respond unconsciously to energy work being performed on him by another member of the group. This person could not hear or see, but was snapping his fingers in time to the energy pulses that were being delivered to his heart chakra. Truly amazing. Having a spiritual experience with this material seems to depend more on the person than the substance itself, as expected. Some people, approximately 20%, reported being severely thrown off into a synthetic chemical whirlwind, with no apparent spiritual effects, while others, approximately 10%, soared with angels, were one with all, or just in general had the most transcendent connective experience of their lives. Most people, plus 50%, were definitely more fucked up than they had ever been, with some spiritual aspect to the trip, but not overly transcendent. The basic deal with this compound is that you never know what's going to happen. Some people experience love states, some people experience fear states. One person stood up at +2 minutes of a too much trip, looked deep in my soul with fear-filled eyes and said, "Why'd you do this to me?" Many more, however, were moved to tears and hugs by the time it was over and wouldn't stop thanking me, God, and everyone else in the room. The very best reactions to this medicine invoke feeling of praise, gratitude, love, and compassion for all that is. I saw several people break across the barrier and get it for the first time. They reached out and touched the energy they dreamed of for so long. It forces people to go to the place of coping that maximum dosages of psychedelics makes people go. The ones who got the most out of this experience used breath focus to handle its extreme intensity. Several discovered their breath for the first time. Yes, the breath connection here is huge. Wonderful. In conclusion, much thanks goes to the one, for this highly visionary chemical, with which one can travel very far. Be careful. Dive deep. Be love.